Hello and welcome to another video review. This is Oregon Trail Classic Edition for DOS. This is a remake of the original Oregon Trail, which was from the 1980s. It was an old educational title made by Mech, and I believe it was an Apple II game originally, and then they eventually ported it to other systems. But it was a really fun game back in the day, and so this was a semi-remake of it. Basically, what they did was they added in a mouse interface. This is a DOS version of the game, so it's also on CD. And they updated the graphics, and that was pretty much it. They took out some things that were in the original game that I guess they felt were superfluous or something. But other than that, it's pretty much the same game as Oregon Trail 1. As you can see, the graphics themselves are better than what it would have been in the 1980s, where it was basically three colors. I believe white, green, and purple were the colors that they used on that one. But anyway, the animations look better. The sprite work in general just looks better. Interface is improved and everything. So it still doesn't look all that great, even for the era it was made. But still, that doesn't really matter because of the nature of the game. As for the sound design, there's not a whole heck of a lot of sound. You hear a da-da every time something happens. Occasionally it'll come in with some MIDI music, which isn't too bad. It's mostly stuff based on older American songs like Yankee Doodle and stuff like that. They also have some gunfire sounds that don't sound too bad. Some thuds. Really, there's not a whole heck of a lot of sound effects, though, so it doesn't really come into play all that much. So then you go to the actual game itself. Now, how does it play? Basically, you start out and you enter your name and you enter the name of your sort of party, I guess you could say. And you choose a profession, and each profession has different bonuses and things that you can look at. But I usually choose like a blacksmith or a carpenter because they can repair things on the wagon without using up parts and stuff. So that's pretty handy. But each thing has its own specific bonuses and disadvantages. So it provides several different ways to play. If you really want to punish yourself, you can do that and make it really difficult. But if you don't want to do that, you can also do that as well. And I know a lot of people used to go in and when they were just goofing off, they would actually have a thing where they would I believe 4chan actually did this, but they had a thread where people were getting nothing but clocks. Literally, they'd buy nothing but clocks and maybe like a box of bullets and a gun, and that was it. And they would try to make it to Oregon, and they would always fail. And you can do that kind of thing if you want. But the object of the game is to get to the Oregon Territory from Independence, Missouri. And along the way, you'll encounter things like rivers, where you have to cross them, and you can either ford or caulk the wagon. You can ford the river, caulk the wagon, take the ferry, stuff like that. And different things will happen along the way. I mean, like if you caulk the wagon, it can tip over. If you ford it, if you ford the river and you do it wrong, it can actually sink and stuff like that. And you'll have to contend with disease. Now, I really am of the opinion that Oregon Trail 2 did all this kind of stuff much better, but that's to be expected. It was a much later game than this. But anyway, basically you have the options of choosing your rations, choosing your pace, and that's pretty much it. I mean, you can rest when you want to and look at the guidebook and everything, but it's kind of an educational title. And it's really not all that hard. It's just the problem I've been having with it lately is trying to run it in DOSBox. It'll actually just stop. It'll freeze, and you'll hear this kind of like scratchy click noise, and it won't play. So this footage that you're seeing is very stilted, I know, but that's why. It's because of the fact that I can't really record it just straight. It'll basically freeze every few seconds to every few minutes, and so it's really hard to actually get it to play through a full game. But basically, the object is to get to Oregon. It's not that difficult. I mean, you don't have to choose your path all that much. I mean, there's a couple of splits here and there. And when you finally get to the end, you go to the Dallas River, and you actually have to do this mini game where you're on a raft and you have to dodge rocks, and once you've done that, you've made it to Oregon and you win. So, is it worth checking out? Sure, why not? Is it worth going out and buying for a ridiculously high price? No, definitely not. But it's worth just screwing around with because it's really fun to sit there and give your people meager rations. Well, the bare bones or whatever the lowest is, and then set the pace to grueling, and then watch what happens. I mean, people will die of random things like it's like so and so has died of dysentery is one of the big ones. You can die of exhaustion, snake bite, all sorts of random stuff. It even becomes ridiculous sometimes. But it's a fun little thing to do once in a while. But it's one of those things where if you're looking for an educational title, go with the second one because the first one isn't really all that educational. It's more just you end up just goofing off with it, and that's why it's fun. Really, I mean, it's not one of those titles where you can just sit there and play for hours and hours and hours on end. But it is fun to screw around with once in a while. So if you like doing that kind of thing, then I highly recommend it.